Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us for today's live presentation on the top overnight rail experiences with Amtrak Vacations. I'll be your host this morning. My name is Colleen, and I've had the very great fortune to have been with Amtrak Vacations for the last 8 years. I've had some great experiences traveling cross country on board the train. So if you do have any questions at all throughout today's presentations, about the different routes, what it's like on board the trains, or anything else, please feel free to go ahead and type any questions that you have into that questions box. You should see it on the right-hand side of your screen. Little questions box there. Please feel free to type away at any time throughout today's broadcast. Now, we will address all questions at the end of today's broadcast. And I can tell you from experience, we do usually get quite a few questions. So if I do not have time to answer yours live on the air today, do not worry because we will have somebody from the team reach out to you and send you those answers that you need. Now, just a little bit about what we are going to talk about today. Of course, our main topic is those popular overnight rail routes. We're going to look at the different routes that travel all across the USA and let you know what you can see along those routes and where you can stop along the way. We'll talk a little bit about how you can route your vacation from your hometown. And then we'll have a look at what it's like to travel overnight on board Amtrak. I've got some great photos here for you of the different types of cabins, the different types of rooms on board the train for you to check out. And of course, we will touch on how Amtrak is providing a safe environment. Now, if you've been on one of these presentations before, bear with me just a minute because I do love to start all of our broadcasts with a look at the Amtrak system map. I think this just does such a great job of illustrating how many places you can travel to all across the USA and up into Canada on board Amtrak. Amtrak actually covers 46 out of the 48 continuous United States. And one of the states that it doesn't touch is Wyoming, but with Amtrak Vacations, we do have some great trips up to Yellowstone National Park. So here with Amtrak Vacations, you can actually visit 47 out of the 48 continuous United States. Now, Amtrak also has over 500 stations across the US. So we will look at many trips today, which start from a larger station like a Chicago or maybe a Los Angeles, just because those are some of our most popular departure points. But do not worry because you do not have to live in a major city to start any of these Amtrak vacations. We can very easily customize them to start there right from your hometown. Now, you might actually already live on one of the major Amtrak routes and not even realize it. For example, if you're out there in Kansas City, you're already on the Southwest Chief train, which will take you out to the Grand Canyon. If you're located in St. Paul, Minneapolis, or Milwaukee, or located on the Empire Builder Line, which you can take right up to Glacier National Park. And of course, if you are not already located on a major train route, it's very easy to change trains to get you from your hometown station to one of the major routes. Now, most of the time, you'll change trains in one of the larger stations like Chicago, Los Angeles, Seattle, for example. It's always a same day connection, so you'll get there in the morning. You'll have a couple hours layover in the station, enough time that you don't have to worry about rushing around, right? You can kick back and relax, and then you'll board your next train. Now, if you do check your baggage, we'll talk about baggage a little bit towards the end, but if you do check your baggage, your bags will be transferred from train to train for you, so you don't have to worry about that. And one of the great things is if you do choose to take one of the private rooms on board the train, like the roomette or the bedroom, and again, I promise I have lots of photos of those at the end as well. If you do take one of the private rooms on board the train, you are considered a first class passenger. And many of the large stations like Chicago and Los Angeles do have a special first class lounge that you can relax in between trains. So you can head to the lounge, grab some complimentary snacks and beverages while you wait for your next train. So very easy to change trains. Certainly, if you have any questions, go ahead and pop those in the chat for me and we can get to them at the end. Now, I do want to point out before we get started that we do have a really fantastic limited time offer just this week. So it's only good up until Friday, but you can save up to $500 off per couple on a lot of our great vacations. So just keep that in mind as we go throughout today's presentation. And I do just want to touch on the safety. I know that is uh, at the forefront of everyone's mind as you're thinking about, possibly planning a trip for the future here. So I just want to touch on what Amtrak is doing to provide a safe environment for yourself and your family. So, of course, as you would expect, they have seriously enhanced their cleaning protocols both in the stations and on board the trains. They are requiring facial coverings for all public areas in the stations and on board the trains. But the great news is, if you do take one of those private rooms, you can take the mask off in the privacy of your own room. If you were going to then head down to the cafe and grab a snack, you'd put it on to head down to the public areas of the train. But as soon as you get back to your room, you can take it off and relax in the privacy of your own room. Now, if you are traveling a shorter distance, maybe one of your trips here just involves a couple hours on the train and you do take the coach seats. In the coach seats, Amtrak is deliberately limiting the number of bookings that they are taking. They're running right around 50% capacity, and now that is on purpose. That's to allow for social distancing. So the way it'll work is that your party will be seated together, but then there will be space between you and the next person on board. Now, they are also recycling their air. They do have fresh air on board about every 4 to 5 minutes, and they have embraced contact free travel. So, what that means is you'll hold up your ticket, the Amtrak employee will scan it, but you never have to pass anything back and forth. And of course, many of the routes, including most of those that we're going to look at today, do have those private rooms available. If you did want to choose one of those private rooms, you can relax and really minimize your interaction with other folks that way. Now, do keep in mind that all of our trips here with Amtrak Vacations are customizable. So, as we talked about, you can start from your hometown. You can also add on any destinations or extra nights. Let's say one of the trips has 2 nights in the Grand Canyon, but you'd really like to do 3 nights in the Grand Canyon. No problem. I can go ahead and set that up for you there. We also, of course, have those upgrades available to those private sleeping accommodations. And in addition, they are really flexible trips. So you have a choice of hotels in every destination. You can choose from 3-star, 4-star, or 5-star hotels, just depending on what you like uh, to stay in when you travel. You can also customize those sightseeing tours. Let's say that our trip includes admission to the Space Needle in Seattle, but you are afraid of heights. No worries. You can swap that out for maybe a food tour, Pike's Place Market, or we've got some great tours out to Mount Rainier or Olympic National Park. So, really up to you what you like to do on vacation. We can customize all of these vacations to make them the perfect trip for you. Now, I want to start out here by showing you one of our rail experiences. So, this is the Pacific Rail experience, and this trip highlights 3 of Amtrak's most popular, most famous routes. This trip starts here in Chicago on Amtrak's Southwest Chief train, and it's 2 overnights on board the train out to Los Angeles. You'll do 1 overnight in Los Angeles and then take the famous Coast Starlight up north to San Francisco, where you do 3 nights, and we've got some great sightseeing included in San Francisco for you. You'll then board Amtrak's California Zephyr train, one of the most scenic routes in all of Amtrak's journeys across the US. And that's 2 overnights back across to Chicago. So let's have a look at those train routes. As I mentioned, the first train route that you'll be on is the Southwest Chief. That does connect Chicago all the way through to Los Angeles. It is a 2 night journey on board the train, as I mentioned. So you'll board the train in Chicago in the early afternoon. And as I mentioned, you can hang around in that lounge. It's the Metropolitan Lounge there in the station, Union Station in Chicago, if you do have those private accommodations like you see pictured here. Now, the Southwest Chief is a beautiful ride. It's actually going to, when you leave Chicago, you do cross the Mississippi River, which is pretty neat. And then you're going through the Great Plains in the late afternoon, which is really lovely, actually, because as the sun sets over the Great Plains, you've got the beautiful rolling golden fields out the window. You'll then settle in for a good night's rest. And when you wake up the next morning, you will be in the American West. So you get these beautiful landscapes that you see in the photos here rising sort of sandstone cliffs, sort of the beautiful painted desert kind of atmosphere. And you'll travel all the way across through to California, getting off the train in Los Angeles for the night. And as I mentioned, these are all customizable. So if you want to spend more time in Los Angeles, that's no problem. Now, on this trip, you do spend one night here, and we do have included a sightseeing tour of the city for you, so you can get out and see the Hollywood sign and where the stars live and things like that. Before boarding Amtrak's Coast Starlight. Now, the Coast Starlight is so impressive because, especially on this part of the journey from Los Angeles up to San Francisco, you have incredible, stunning views of the Pacific coastline, as you can see from the photo here. Now, these folks are hanging out in the observation car. So one great feature of all the overnight trains on board Amtrak is that they do feature an observation car for really beautiful viewing. And that car is still open right now. It does have social distancing measures in place right now, but the car is still open even if you were to travel tomorrow. So you can get these incredible sort of floor to ceiling, almost kind of domed views of the coastline. And then as you get a little bit closer to San Francisco, the train is going to go a little bit inland, but it's really lovely because at that point it's going through wine country. So you get sort of the lush rolling hills with the vineyards. You can see all the grapevines and everything. Might be a great time to pop over to the cafe car and check out a local wine. So the cafe car is open all day long. It's for purchase, but you can grab a cocktail, a glass of wine, or just a snack if you want to have a snack on board the train. The way it's set up is actually the observation car that you see pictured here is on the top level, and the cafe is on the bottom level. So these are double-decker trains, two-level trains. The top level is the observation car, and the bottom level is the cafe. Now, at this time, if you were traveling this month or next month, certainly here in 2020, the cafe is takeout only. So you would go down, grab your snack, your drink, whatever it might be, and then head back to your seat in the observation car or back to your private room. If you're traveling next summer and social distancing is less of a concern at that time, the cafe I do expect would be back open. They do have tables and seating down in the cafe if you did want to eat down there as well. Now the Coast Starlight train is going to bring you up to San Francisco, where you have 3 nights on this vacation. And the reason for those 3 nights is so that you can really get out and explore both the city, which is fantastic, super fun, vibrant city, as well as the beautiful nature surrounding it. So on this trip, you do have a tour included out to the Muir Woods, which is a grove of those huge redwood trees just outside San Francisco. Very easy walking typically. You can see there's a little bit of a stairs in this particular trail, but there's also trails throughout the woods which are perfectly flat. They've got like boards, decks, if you will. Not they're not quite paved, but they've got easy walking surfaces. So whatever your activity level, you can absolutely get out and enjoy the Muir Woods. And then after your visit to the giant redwoods, we do include a bay cruise back to San Francisco, which is really nice because I always say if you're traveling all the way across country, heading out to the Pacific Ocean, you should really get out on the water. Uh, and experience it from that side. So we do have a beautiful bay cruise back to San Francisco, which will give you an opportunity to take some pretty fantastic photos of the Golden Gate Bridge from the water there. Now, after your stay in San Francisco, you will board what is probably my favorite train anywhere in the world, not just here in the US, and that train is the California Zephyr. So this is 2 overnights from California all the way back to Chicago to conclude your trip. And what makes the California Zephyr so special is the incredibly diverse scenery that you see all along the route. Pretty much anytime you're looking out the window, it's at something spectacular. And those views do really change throughout that 2-day journey. So as you depart California, you're going through the Sierra Nevada mountains. So you've kind of got these mountains with these towering pine trees. As you're leaving California, You then come into Nevada, and it really changes the scenery to like a desert kind of landscape. Everything's flat. You can see for miles and miles. You kind of have the tumbleweeds rolling by the train, right? And then as you transition from Nevada into Utah, the scenery really starts to change again, and you've got these beautiful red rock kind of sandstone cliffs, as you can see in that photo on the left there. And coming partway through Utah, you pick up the Colorado River, which you see pictured there, and you follow that Colorado River for hundreds of miles into the state of Colorado. At which time you start climbing up into the Rocky Mountains. You can see them on the bottom right-hand side there. And so you're going through the Rocky Mountains for several hours, climbing up into the mountains. You've got the granite, snow-capped peaks. There's pretty much snow on the peaks year-round, even if you're traveling in the summertime. And you go through those incredible Rocky Mountains down into Denver, Colorado. You stop there for a little bit and then continue on to Chicago. And again, the end of your journey is really lovely as well because you are going through the rolling golden fields of the Great Plains. So, really dramatic, different changing scenery all throughout this route. One of the reasons it's one of the most popular Amtrak routes, and it's featured in quite a few of our trips, as you'd imagine. So this trip here, the Pacific Rail experience, as you can see, it's certainly designed for you folks that really want to spend a lot of time on board the train, right? So it's 4 overnights on the train and 4 overnights in hotels, so it's pretty evenly split there. It does feature 3 of Amtrak's most famous routes: the Southwest Chief, the Coast Starlight, and that beautiful California Zephyr train ride. Now, when you do get off the train and you are spending the night in those great cities of Los Angeles and San Francisco, we do have the sightseeing included for you. So we do have hop on, hop off tours of both San Francisco and Los Angeles. And as I mentioned, we also have that great sightseeing tour out to the Muir Woods with the Bay Cruise of San Francisco as well. So this trip here altogether, it's a 9-day itinerary altogether, starts at $14.49 per person. Now that's based on 2 people sharing the room. So all the prices we will look at today are based on 2 people sharing the room, just because that's the most common, configuration. But certainly if you are traveling as a solo traveler or as a group of 3 or 4, we can easily get you the prices for that. Just give us a call or call your local travel advisor, and they'd be more than happy to help you with any of these Amtrak vacations. Those guys are fantastic. So give us a call or call your local travel advisor, and we can easily get you the rates if you are traveling as a solo or a group of 3 or 4 or 5, whatever it might be. Now, our next trip is quite similar. It's the same routing, essentially. It's the Southwest Chief down to the Coast Starlight and then the California Zephyr to get you home. But I wanted to highlight this trip because if you do have a little bit extra time, this is just a couple extra nights along the journey here. I just want to highlight the fact that you can easily add in destinations on your trip, right? So we took that Coast Starlight or the Pacific Rail experience and we added in Grand Canyon and Yosemite National Park. So this trip actually has you go on the Southwest Chief down to Arizona. You're going to get off the train there in Arizona and head up to the Grand Canyon. You actually get to spend 2 nights inside the national park at one of the historic lodges inside the park. And then you continue on your journey. You can see in this version, we skip Los Angeles and head straight up to San Francisco. We still do 3 nights in San Francisco, but we do a full day tour out to Yosemite National Park, which we'll touch on that. And then you take that beautiful California Zephyr train ride back to Chicago. So just wanted to show this same Amtrak routing, but very different stops along the way, just to give you an idea. Now, the Grand Canyon, it's one of my favorite places to visit, again, probably anywhere in the world, not just here in the US, because it's absolutely stunning and breathtaking national park. And I really like this itinerary because it features a bonus train ride. So not only do you get to experience the fantastic Amtrak trains, you also get to travel on the beautiful Grand Canyon Railway. So the way this works is you'll take the Amtrak train as far as Flagstaff, Arizona. That's as far as Amtrak will get you, close as Amtrak will get you to the Grand Canyon. So you'll get off the Amtrak train in Flagstaff, Arizona. What'll happen then is we will pick you up at the train station in Flagstaff, and bring you right over to the depot for this Grand Canyon Railway train. Now, there is a hotel attached to the Grand Canyon Railway Depot, and because you'll be arriving in the evening, we do have you spend the first night there in Williams, Arizona at the Grand Canyon Railway Hotel. Really beautiful hotel, great big fireplace in the lobby. They've got a pool, it's quite nice. We include breakfast for you at the hotel in the morning, and then you'll take this beautiful 2 hour, 15-minute sightseeing train ride on vintage train cars up inside to the inside of the park, inside of the south rim of the Grand Canyon itself. Now, that Grand Canyon Railway train is really neat because right before the train goes out, they do have a little Wild West cowboy show. And then the cowboys will get on the train and they'll play the ukulele and kind of provide live entertainment during your journey up to the Grand Canyon. Now, if you've not been to the Grand Canyon before, I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is absolutely one of the seven wonders of the natural world. It is absolutely breathtaking. The first time that I saw the Grand Canyon, I genuinely didn't think that it was real. It didn't look real because it just stretches on and on and on as far as the eye can see. It actually looked almost like a painted Hollywood backdrop. And the reason for that is that it is 277 miles long and 18 miles wide at its widest point. Now, there's a lot to see and do up there at the Grand Canyon. Most of our trips do include a sightseeing tour of the canyon. That will resume next year if you are traveling right now. This winter time, unfortunately, the tour is not running, but it is resuming next year in 2021. And that tour will pick you up right at the railway station. So you'll get off that Grand Canyon Railway train. You'll walk across the train tracks, and your tour will be waiting for you. They'll take you out to some incredible lookout points where you can get beautiful photos like this. And then at the end of the tour, they'll drop you right back off at your lodge. So you do stay in one of the historic lodges right there inside the Grand Canyon, which is such a great feature because it puts you right in the heart of the action. Very easy to get up for the sunrise, for example, which is one of our tips that we always give people, even if you're not an early riser. And trust me, I am not an early riser myself. I absolutely cannot recommend the sunrise at the Grand Canyon enough. It's one of those truly once in a lifetime kind of experiences. And because you're staying inside the park at one of the historic lodges located right there along the rim, you can more or less roll out of bed about 10 minutes before the sunrise, find yourself a good spot, and get some incredible photos, as you can see here. Now, after your stay in the Grand Canyon, we'll have you continue the rest of that Southwest Chief journey through to Los Angeles. You'll change trains in Los Angeles. Like I said, you don't stop in LA on this particular itinerary, although we could easily add hotel accommodations in Los Angeles if you wanted to stop along the way. On this trip, though, you do pass through Los Angeles on your way to the Coast Starlight train. And we saw it a moment ago, but that Coast Starlight, as I said, is considered one of the most beautiful Amtrak train rides because you'd see hours and hours of this incredible Pacific scenery. And as you can see in the photo here, a lot of the time along this journey, the train is going along a route that you would not see this scenery any other way. There is no road here, right? You certainly wouldn't be able to see it in an airplane. It's a really stunning and breathtaking journey along the coast. It's really kind of neat actually because you'll go past beaches, and I can speak from experience. You see the surfers out in the water. Sometimes you see seals playing in like the little coves. So it's a really beautiful journey along the coast up to San Francisco. And this trip does have you spend 3 nights in San Francisco. And again, you do some great sightseeing out of San Francisco, including a full day's journey out to Yosemite National Park, which is absolutely one of the highlights of this itinerary. Yosemite National Park, it's technically our third national park to be established here in the US. Back in 1864, it was actually protected the land. So the land was protected back in 1864. At that time, it was a national park, or sorry, it was a state park because it was all located inside California. So it was not yet a national park. But it definitely should get some credit for kicking off the national park idea. Yosemite, of course, is known for its soaring granite cliffs and tumbling waterfalls. Those granite cliffs like El Capitan and Half Dome, of course, are famous worldwide for rock climbers. There's several documentaries you may have seen about rock climbers climbing in Yosemite. So I always recommend to folks to bring your binoculars out to Yosemite because not only could you see some incredible wildlife like black bears, mule deer, coyotes, peregrine falcons, and golden eagles? You could also see the rock climbers clinging to the face of Half Dome in the distance. And of course, one of the other spectacular sights of Yosemite is Yosemite Falls. Yosemite Falls is one of the tallest waterfalls in the world. It's actually made up of three different parts of the falls, and you do see that on your sightseeing tour. So, what's great about this tour is that it will pick you up at your hotel in San Francisco. It's going to drive you out to Yosemite National Park. You will do a guided tour of Yosemite National Park with your tour guides, and then you'll have several hours of free time. So you can do one of the different hiking trails. Again, Yosemite has hiking trails for folks with all levels of experience. I have virtually no hiking experience, and I still enjoyed my time there quite a bit. So they've got things for people of all levels of experience. You can also utilize the internal shuttle system to get yourself around the park during your free time if you want to kind of run from place to place and maximize your viewing. You can also kick back and relax right by the visitor center if you just want to take a moment and breathe and soak in that natural beauty. So you do have several hours of free time to explore the park on your own before you'll get picked up and brought right back to your hotel in San Francisco. So it's kind of door-to-door service with this Yosemite National Park trip. Now, as I said, all of these trips are customizable. If you'd actually like to spend a couple nights in Yosemite National Park, we can certainly arrange that for you as well. You can take that same tour down, do the guided tour, and then instead of having several hours of free time, you could have 1 or 2 days worth of free time before you take the transfer back to San Francisco. We could easily set you up with hotel accommodations right there at Yosemite if you wanted to spend time there. So again, it's entirely up to you. But after your time in the park, you will return back to San Francisco and then take the California Zephyr back to Chicago. So just another view of the Colorado River. You can see it peeking through the trees there. One of the things that I find great about the California Zephyr ride is as you go along the Colorado River, right, you'll see lots of folks fishing and kayaking. They always stop and wave to the train as you go by, which is a lot of fun. Now, this shot here was taken from the dining car. We'll talk about dining in just a couple minutes, but Amtrak does have full service dining cars on all of the long distance trains that we are looking at today. So they do, again, these are double decker trains. So the dining car is in the top level of the train, and then the kitchen where they prepare your meals. It's off limit to guests, of course, but the kitchen is on that bottom level. So they are preparing the meals fresh right beneath your feet and then running the meals up to you in the dining car. Now, that is the typical service we will talk about. They have altered it just a little bit for wintertime travel this year, of course, with COVID precautions, but we'll talk about that at the end. So this trip here, Grand Canyon to Yosemite, round trip from Chicago. As I mentioned, it is a little bit of a longer trip. It's 11 days total. It's 4 nights on the train and 6 nights hotel accommodations on this particular route. It does include those great sightseeing tours, as I mentioned, sightseeing tours of Grand Canyon, Yosemite, and San Francisco. And this one here starts at $2,249 per person. Now, one of the greatest features of Amtrak is traveling to those beautiful national parks. And we like to say that you can step off the train into the open spaces of the parks. And no place exemplifies that better than Glacier National Park in Montana. So the next trip we're going to look at features Amtrak's Empire Builder train. This is a round trip from Seattle. So Seattle out to Glacier National Park on board the Empire Builder, and then back to Seattle at the end. So it's one overnight experience out to Glacier Park. You'll do 3 nights in Glacier National Park and then one overnight back to Seattle at the end. Now, do keep in mind, again, you can start from your hometown. So if you live maybe in Portland, Oregon, for example, very easy to do the same trip, from Portland, or you could do it from the East Coast if you're coming from Chicago or somewhere east as well. But on this journey, you do see the beautiful Cascade Mountain Range when you leave Seattle. So you actually get 2 mountain ranges for the price of one here on this Empire Builder train route. It's one of the reasons that the Empire Builder is one of Amtrak's most popular and most famous routes. When you leave, as I mentioned, Seattle, you do go through the beautiful Cascade Mountains on your way through Oregon. Through Washington on your way out to Montana. And then when you come into Montana, you start going through the northern Rocky Mountains on your way into Glacier National Park. So the California Zephyr train that we saw a few minutes ago goes through the Colorado Rockies. The Empire Builder train goes through the northern Rocky Mountains. So you can see uh, quite beautiful cliffside mountain scenery on the left-hand photo there. You can see kind of, this is another shot from inside the train. This is from inside the observation car. Looking out the window at some of the great Empire Builder scenery there. And of course, this trip, the highlight of it, not only is the Empire Builder beautiful, but Glacier National Park itself is absolutely stunning. Glacier National Park is known for its deep valleys, ancient forests, and dramatic alpine scenery. Of course, as the name suggests, there are glaciers in Glacier National Park. There are 26 glaciers in Glacier National Park and over 130 pristine glacially carved lakes, like the one you can see in the photo here. Glacier Park is pretty humongous. It's actually 1 million acres in size, and actually 2 different mountain ranges connect in Glacier National Park. Now, while you're there, you could potentially see over 1,000 different species of plants and over hundreds or multiple hundreds of species of animals and birds, including mountain goats, elk, black bear, moose, bighorn sheep, beavers, and marmots, and so many more. I can't list them all. We'd be here for the rest of our hour. Now, while you're in Glacier National Park, you're going to stay in the beautiful and historic Glacier Park Lodge, which is located incredibly convenient to the train station. It's about 209 steps from the train station to the front door of the lodge. This photo is actually taken right from across the street from the train station, so you can see just how close the lodge is to the station. Now, if you do have mobility concerns, though, just let us know, and we can always have somebody from the lodge come out and meet you with a little golf cart and give you a lift up to the front door. But this is, again, a perfect example of how easy it is to step off the train uh, literally into the national park. The Glacier National Park Lodge is over 100 years old. It was built at the turn of the century by the Great Northern Railroad. Glacier Park is the jewel in the crown of the Great Northern Railroad, and they've been trying to get you folks to come and visit for over 100 years. It's incredibly charming, historic, of course, very cozy. They've got a huge fireplace. They've actually got a piano in the lobby as well, where folks often will be playing piano to serenade you. They've got a beautiful dining room where you can eat any meal you like, but especially the dinners are quite nice. They've actually got some exhibits in the lodge as well related to the Blackfeet tribal nation. So the Blackfeet tribal nation is right next door to Glacier National Park, and they've got a tremendous long history with the land. Now, while you're in Glacier National Park, we have 2 incredible tours for you. We include a boat cruise out on the incredible glacially carved lakes, and we also include a full day sightseeing tour in a really neat historic 1930s restored jammer bus. So the name of the bus is a jammer bus because when they were going up the steep mountain roads back in the 1930s and the drivers had to change gears, it made a dramatic kind of jamming sound. They've since been restored with automatic transmission, so the jammer sound has gone away, but we've kept the name uh, for historical reasons, I guess. So you'll do a full day sightseeing tour with multiple stops along the journey at famous places like St. Mary's Lake, the Continental Divide where the 2 continents meet. You'll also stop along the way for wildlife viewing and for lunch as well. So really beautiful tours included here in Glacier National Park before you get back on that Empire Builder train and head back out to Seattle. So this trip here doesn't include any nights in Seattle, but if you'd like to add them, that's very easy for us to do if you want to visit Seattle as well. Maybe take a day trip out to Mount Rainier, which you can see in the background of the photo there, quite close to Seattle. We have some great day trips out there, or even to Olympic National Park if you wanted to combine a couple national parks into this one itinerary. So this trip here, as I said, it's 6 days. Starts at $14.99. It's 2 overnights on the train and 3 nights in Glacier National Park. Now, those 2 overnights on the train, this price here, $14.99, is based on the coach accommodations on the train, so the regular seats on board the train. But I know that it's a often a question from folks, how much is it to upgrade to one of the private rooms? Now those prices do change quite a bit. It does depend on where you're going and when you're traveling and when you book your trip and all kinds of factors like that. But just to give you an idea, I looked at this trip here, Glacier National Park round trip from Seattle. I looked at the middle of June, because Glacier National Park, I should mention, folks, is seasonal. This is the only seasonal destination we are discussing today. It is only open from the beginning of June until the middle of September, mainly because the rest of the year it's covered in snow because it is so high up in the mountains. But you can visit Glacier Park between June and September. So I just looked in the middle of June for you to give you an idea. So on this trip, if you did take the roomette, which is the slightly smaller of the two rooms, the roomette would be right about $100 per person. And that's including both nights on the train. That's the total for both nights. So 100 per person to upgrade to the roomette. And the bedroom, which is about twice the size, it's about double the size of the roomette. And it does have its own private restroom, bathroom, and shower. The bedroom is about $325 per person for the entire journey. Now, do keep in mind as well that if you do have a roomette or a bedroom, all of your meals on board the train are included. So you'll get 3 meals on the way out to Glacier and 3 meals on the way back from Glacier. So that's 2 nights accommodations and 6 meals for 100 per person for the roomette or $325 per person for the bedroom. So it really can be quite affordable. Just depends on, again, when you book and where you're going. We always recommend to book early. As soon as you know where and when you want to go, you will get the best prices usually the earlier you book. So I want to finish up here with a look at the Grand Rail experience. This is one of our most popular trips for you rail buffs. You really want to experience as many different Amtrak routes as possible on one trip. This is definitely the journey for you. It starts in Chicago with 2 overnights on the Empire Builder out to Seattle, 1 overnight down to Los Angeles on the Coast Starlight. And then you'll take 3 trains we have not seen yet. You will take the Sunset Limited from Los Angeles to New Orleans, then the Crescent train from New Orleans up to Washington, D.C., and then the Capital Limited from Washington to Chicago. So let's have a look at this journey here. As I mentioned, it starts in Chicago, and you do pass straight through Glacier National Park on the Empire Builder route. This is a photo of St. Mary's Lake, which you will see if you stay in Glacier on your Big Sky Circle tour. Now you end up in Seattle. We do include a city tour of Seattle for you while you're there. And then you'll take Amtrak's incredible Coast Starlight train down to Los Angeles. Now, of course, we've talked about the stunning Pacific Coast scenery, but actually I should mention, especially on this journey, when you're going from Seattle down through San Francisco, so that first half of your journey, essentially, that Pacific Northwest portion, it's really lovely as well. It's not kind of that same California sunshine, but it is going through the Cascade Mountains, not unlike what you would see on the Empire Builder. But so you're going through the Cascade Mountain range. You do see several beautiful, large snow-capped mountains like Mount Hood in the distance from this part of the journey. And then, of course, once you get through San Francisco, through that wine country that we talked about, you do start hugging that beautiful California coastline for the rest of your journey down into Los Angeles. Now, we do have you stop for a night in Los Angeles, and we do include a sightseeing tour, which will take you to places like Hollywood Boulevard. You can see the famous El Capitan Theater, Rodeo Drive, Of course, get those great glimpses of the Hollywood sign. So we do have a fantastic sightseeing tour included for you in Los Angeles. And then you'll board the Sunset Limited. The Sunset Limited is a great journey. It'll take you from Los Angeles down through kind of the deserts of Arizona and New Mexico. You go all the way through Texas, and then you come into Louisiana, and the scenery really changes to this beautiful bayou kind of scenery with the hanging Spanish moss and the little lush greenery and the little lakes and ponds and waterways of the bayou, as you can see in a photo like this. You go all the way through Louisiana into New Orleans. And we do have you stop for a couple nights in New Orleans because New Orleans is an absolutely fantastic city to visit. They've got incredible culture, incredible food. Can't talk enough about the food in New Orleans. You can eat yourself silly with the different Creole and Cajun food options there. And then you'll take Amtrak's Crescent train from New Orleans up to Washington, D.C. Now, the Crescent is the only single level long distance train that we'll see in today's presentation. On the East Coast, it is a little bit more typical for the trains to be single level instead of double decker because some of the tunnels over here on the East Coast were built quite some time ago and they were not built tall enough to accommodate the double decker trains. The great news about the single level trains, though, is that we expect early next year that they will have all new, newly renovated sleeping carriages. So stay tuned for that on the single level trains here on the East Coast, like the Crescent. Early 2021, we're hoping they're launched. They'll have some new sleeping accommodations for you, so brand new would be quite nice. The Crescent journey itself is a really lovely journey through some the charming American South. You'll glide past cotton and tobacco fields, roll through charming towns like Charlottesville and Greensville on your way up to Washington, D.C. Now, we do have you spend a night there in the nation's capital. You will do a beautiful tour called the Monuments by Moonlight Tour, where you will go out after dark and see all of the beautiful monuments lit up in the evening before you board Amtrak's Capital Limited. Now, the Capital Limited train is really quite lovely as well. It goes through these kind of rolling hillsides in Virginia, West Virginia, on its way up to Chicago. You can see here it's especially beautiful in the fall with the different fall foliage. So, really lovely ride on the Capital Limited back to Chicago to finish your journey. So this trip here, the Grand Rail Experience, it's 14-day itinerary, starts at $21.99 per person, and includes everything we just talked about, all those beautiful train rides, all those stops in those fantastic cities like Seattle and New Orleans and Washington, sightseeing in each city where you stop, of course. Uh, Sorry, just a brief pause there. So that is the Grand Rail Experience. Now, with our remaining time, let's have a look at what it is like on board the train. I know that's one of the things that you most like to see. So before we get on board the train, let's just talk a quick little bit about packing for the train. Now, Amtrak does have very generous baggage allowances. You can have 2 free carry-on bags, plus a personal item like a purse, backpack, or laptop bag. You can also check 2 bags as long as your station has checked baggage available. All of the stations that we've seen today do have checked baggage, even the Grand Canyon and Glacier National Park. So it is quite common to have checked baggage available, but just ask us or your local travel advisor when you're making your inquiry, and we can let you know if checked baggage is available from your local station. But where it's available, checked baggage does work pretty similar to an airline. So you would check your bag at your original station, and then you won't see it again until you arrive at your destination. So you do want to make sure that you pack anything that you need during your journey into your carry-on bag. So some things that folks commonly forget to bring with them is their toothbrush, their PJs, your clothes for tomorrow, your chargers for your phone, your laptop, or any other electronic devices that you need to charge. Certainly do remember to keep any medication that you need with you in your carry-on as well. You're also allowed to bring snacks and drinks on board the train. If you do have a private room on board the train, you can even bring your own bottle of wine to enjoy in the evening if you like. Now, if you are checking baggage, we do recommend that you get to the station right about an hour before your train is scheduled to depart. You can check those bags up until 45 minutes prior to departure. If you are not checking bags, you can really arrive at the station right about a half an hour before your train's due to leave. So you can see a much more comfortable and relaxed atmosphere. You do not need to be there 3 hours early like you do for an airplane ride. About 30 minutes to an hour, just depending on if you're checking baggage or not. Now, if you are traveling for a shorter distance, I do want to show you the coach seats. They are quite comfortable. There is loads of legroom in coach. And as you can see, the first thing I think most folks notice about this picture is that there is no middle seat. So no matter what, you will not be stuck in a middle seat on board Amtrak. They do not exist. You'll have two seats and then an aisle and then two more seats. Now, as I said, there is ample legroom. I'm admittedly a little bit on the shorter side myself, but I cannot kick the seat in front of me even if I tried, so I can more or less guarantee that you will not have any small children kicking your seat, as I have so often experienced on an airplane. You do have outlets at every seat and that big beautiful picture window to take in the scenery. Now, you would typically store your bags overhead or under your seat in coach, but there is a luggage rack at the front of each car if you do have a larger bag that you don't feel comfortable putting overhead there. The seats do recline back quite a bit as well. It's about a 45-degree angle. If you have an armchair, like a recliner chair in your living room, go lean back in that. That's about the amount that the Amtrak seats will lean back. So they don't go flat, but it is quite comfortable. And they do have a little footrest that comes up as well. But if you are traveling overnight on board the train, we always do recommend that folks do look into the private sleeping accommodations because not only will you have a much more comfortable journey, right, in your bed instead of sitting in coach, there's a lot of great perks that come with your private accommodations as well. A couple of those perks right here. You do have priority boarding. So you will board the train first. The way it works is they'll make an announcement over the loudspeaker for all sleeper car passengers to go ahead and head down to the tracks and board that train. So you do get priority boarding. You can stroll down at your leisure. Your rooms are pre-assigned, so you'll have roomette number 10 or bedroom B or whatever it might be. So you can just kind of relax and head down. With the coach seats, it's typically first come, first serve on the seating, so it can be a little bit of a rush right at the beginning to board in coach. So it's really nice to have that priority boarding with your sleeper. Of course, you do have the privacy door as well. You can close and lock that door for your own comfort during your journey. One of the great features about having a private room is that you do have a dedicated car attendant. These car attendants are fantastic. They are super friendly, super knowledgeable folks, some of my favorite people that I've met on any of my journeys here on Amtrak. Now, these are the folks that will turn your seats down into beds at night, and they'll turn your beds back up into seats the next day. They can also help you make arrangements for your meal times. They can point out what mountain that is out the window, and of course, many more things. Now, those sleeper car attendants are responsible for the shared restroom facilities, which will be important to you if you take the roomette on board the train. So the roomette on board the train is the smaller of the two main types of cabins. The roomette is designed for one or two people. It is actually our most popular type of room. Most folks do take the roomette when they travel on board Amtrak. As you can see in this photo, it has a huge, big, beautiful picture window. You've got a tray table that folds out. You can see that right next to her drink there. There's a little bit of space to store, a couple jackets hanging up. But most of your bags you would store under the seat. So you do want to keep in mind to pack a smaller bag to bring up to the roomettes. And then with the sleeping cars, there's a large luggage rack at the front of each car when you first board. So you can put your larger bags in the luggage rack and then pack a day bag, a smaller carry-on size bag to bring up to your room. As you can see in the photo here, the roomette is two chairs which face each other during the day. Uh, and then in the evening, they do fold down into bunk beds. Those curtains that you see pictured in the photo here, those are big, heavy, light blocking curtains. So you can drag those across and Velcro those, to provide you with privacy as well as to block out the light if you do not want to wake up with the sunrise. You can draw those curtains across and kind of block the light out there. And here's the bedrooms in the evening. Now, I know it's a common question for folks about getting up to the top bunk in the roomette. There are about 2 steps that you can use. You can just see the first step just barely by the gentleman's arm that he's got resting on the bed by his elbow. It's blue on the top and gray on the bottom. That's the first step, and then there's another step kind of located right above that. So there are 2 steps to help you get up to the top. But if you do have concerns, if both folks do have mobility concerns, one of the things that we often suggest to folks is to get 2 roomettes. And if you book early enough, we can get them right across the hall from each other. So you can sit together during the day in whichever roomette has a better view, right? Maybe all of a sudden there's a mountain range out the left-hand side of the train. You pop over to your roomette on the left-hand side. And then in the evening, your sleeper car attendant can fold down just the bottom bunk in each room, and then each person has a bottom bunk to sleep in, loads of room in their room. And then again, the next morning, that sleeper car attendant will flip them back up into chairs, and you can sit together again during the day. Now, as you see in the photo, there is not really any room in this roomette for facilities, so you will be using the facilities just down the hall. So the restrooms and shower are just down the hall here. There are multiple restrooms. There's usually 4 restrooms per car. And the great thing about this is you are not sharing these facilities with the entire train. You're not even sharing them with everybody that's got a roomette. You're only sharing them with the other folks that have a roomette in your train car. So yeah, it's not a problem. I've traveled in a roomette multiple times and never had a problem. Like I say, the sleeper car attendants are responsible for keeping all of the facilities spick and span, and they're doing a great job with all of the enhanced cleaning measures, especially. But if you do want that private restroom, private to your room, or you want a little bit more space to kick back and relax, you may like to look into the bedroom accommodations. Similar to the roomette, you can see the bedrooms have the great big beautiful picture window. They've got the little fold out tray table where you can set up a laptop to watch a movie, or maybe eat your meals in your room if you like, play a game of cards. There's a little bit more storage for baggage as well. You can see over the gentleman's head there's some room for baggage storage, as well as plenty of room underneath the love seat. So where the woman is sitting is a love seat. I've got a much better picture of that in just a minute. But just want to hover on this one for a second to show you that there is another freestanding chair. So you can sit across from each other if you like, especially if you're going to be enjoying a meal. Or you can sit next to each other on the love seat, as you can see here. So you can see loads of room for storage underneath the seat there. Again, with the bedroom, it is bunk bed style, so that love seat will fold out into the bottom bunk, and then the top seat will fold out, top bunk rather, will fold out from the wall just above their heads. You can see it's blue, kind of lined with silver there. Now, with the bedrooms, you do have your own private facilities. So you have a sink and vanity right across from the love seat. You can just kind of see the towel hanging above the sink in the very top right-hand corner of the photo. And then you do have a private little toilet shower stall. So the toilet shower stall is private to your room. It is separate from your room. You can just about see the latch to the door. Again, if you're looking at that top right-hand part of the photo, that's the latch to the door to the facilities there. So it's kind of similar to like a sailboat. Once you're in the room and you turn on the shower, you get the whole little room wet. But it is separate completely from your living space, so you're not getting that wet at all. I think that's a little bit common bit of confusion for folks. And here we have them set up for sleeping at night. Now, I have heard folks say that they sleep 2 adults on the bottom bunk together. I think you'd have to be very close to do that. The bottom bunk in the bedroom is about a twin size bed, so you can picture it like your kind of childhood twin size bed. That's about the width of it there. And then the top bunk will sleep 1 person up on the top bunk. There is a ladder to get up on the top bunk, so it's definitely a little bit easier to get up onto that top bunk. You could potentially sleep 2 adults and 1 child in the bedroom. That child being 12 or under, you would put 1 adult and the child on the bottom bunk, and the second adult on the top bunk. Now, if you're traveling, maybe with 4 people, you've got 4 larger folks, maybe they're all adults, or you've got teenage kids, you could do get what's called a bedroom suite, which essentially is 2 bedrooms that are right next to each other, and you take the wall down in between the bedrooms. So you've got now one big room with 4 bunks, 2 bottom bunks and 2 top bunks, and 2 little restrooms if you do the bedroom suite. There is also a family room on some trains, which is designed for 2 adults and 2 children, but they definitely are designed for children because those bunk beds for the kids are 4'9" and 4'6" respectively. So I do sometimes have folks ask if they could sleep 4 adults in the family room, but you really can't. Those child bunks are designed for children in the family room. And then, of course, Amtrak does have an accessible room as well. The accessible room is designed for one mobility impaired person and their companion. It is a little bit of a larger room. It does have space for the wheelchair, of course. It is still going to be bunk beds in the evening, so it's the bottom bunk that you see set up here, and then the top bunk would fold out from just above her there. There is a ladder to get up into the top bunk to make it a little easier. Now, the accessible room does have its own private restroom, so private toilet and sink. You can see it's actually right behind the sleeper car attendant in this photo here. And then they do have access to accessible showers. The accessible shower is just outside the room. It is shared facilities, but it is accessible. And with Amtrak, if you do have any of these type of rooms, as I mentioned before, all of your meals on board the train are included. So right now, if you are traveling on board the train in the next couple months, due to COVID-19, they do have what's called the flexible dining menu. So the flexible dining, as you can see in the photos there, it is set up primarily to be delivered to your room. So it's a little bit more limited. They can't customize it as much as they can with the traditional dining. But it is really nice food prepared hot on board the train and served to you there, typically in your room. They are encouraging folks, if you are traveling in the next month or two, to get those meals delivered to you in your private sleeper just to allow for social distancing. You would basically select whatever you like off that menu, which, as you saw, had some good choices there, like braised beef and chicken marsala and dewy sausage, and quite a variety, really, on that flexible dining menu. And then you'll select the time that you want it delivered. Maybe you want your meal delivered at 6 p.m., and they'll bring it right down to you in your room. Now, if you are looking at traveling maybe next summer and hopefully social distancing is not as big of a concern at that time, we do expect that the traditional dining will return next year. So with all of these long distance trains, except for the Crescent, all of these double decker long distance trains that we saw, traditionally you would head down to the dining car. And as I told you before, the kitchen is right underneath. You could order your steak medium rare. That's how they would prepare it, and then they'll bring it right up to you in the dining car. So again, we do expect this will return next year as soon as they can relax some of those COVID precautions. Um, and just as a quick reminder to you folks, we do have that great limited time offer going on where you can save up to $500 per couple. And we do have some great everyday discounts as well. So if anybody in your party qualifies as a child, 12 or under, a senior age 65 or older, active duty military or veterans, we do have some great discounts on the rail portions of your trip. So just ask us or your local travel advisor about those when you inquire about your trip. And I do just want to highlight for you, we do have great maximum flexibility offer going on right now. So we do recognize that it is a little bit of a confusing time to be booking a vacation. Nobody's quite sure what the landscape will look like next year. With Amtrak vacations, though, if you do need to make any changes, as long as you book this year, you can travel anytime, can be 2021, 2022. We can book your trip up to 2 years in advance here with Amtrak vacations. And if you need to make any changes whatsoever, you can do so right up until 5 days prior to your trip with no change fees. And you can actually cancel the trip if you need to up until 5 days prior to your trip with no cancellation penalties. Now, if you do cancel 5 days prior to the trip, you'll get the full amount of your trip back as a future travel credit, which will be good for up to 2 years to rebook either the same trip or anything else that you like with Amtrak vacations. Now, I know we're coming right to the end of our time limit, so I will get to as many questions as I can in just a moment. But as a quick reminder, we do these presentations every week, so we've got some great presentations coming up for you in the next couple weeks, focusing on cross-country vacations, as well as 5 tips for traveling in 2021. And before I get to your questions, I do just have a very quick question for you. Because, as I said, we do these every week and we want to make sure that they are fun and interesting and continue to cover topics that you folks are interested in. So if you can just go ahead and chat me in that questions box where you are looking to travel, what destinations are you interested in, and when would you like to go? We can make sure to feature those destinations in some of our upcoming presentations. And without any further ado, let me go ahead and answer as many questions as I can in the next couple minutes. Great question here from Kim. Where can I get this travel map? So Kim, that's an excellent question. We usually do have it attached as one of the handouts. I see that we don't today, but you should be able to grab it right on AmtrakVacations.com. When you go to AmtrakVacations.com, you'll get prompted to sign up for the newsletter, and usually we'll send you out the free map along with the newsletter. Great question here from Clayton. Clayton would like to know about dietary restrictions. So if you do have dietary restrictions, Amtrak will always have vegetarian options and they'll always have kosher options. So if those are the dietary restrictions you mean, you are all set. If you have other restrictions like maybe a vegan diet or low carb or low sodium, you would just want to let the Amtrak employees know about that when you get on board the train, and they can make recommendations to you as far as what the best meals to suit the low sodium diet might be. And again, if you are traveling sort of next year when they have the traditional dining back in force, you can make a little bit more customizations to those meals. Like you could get the cheeseburger with no bread, get a lettuce wrap or something instead, right? If you're trying to avoid carbs or whatever it might be. So if you do have any specific dietary concerns, just ask us or ask your local travel advisor when you give us a call, and we can let you know sort of what they often do for those things. But honestly, my main recommendation would be to just chat with your staff on board the train. They're super knowledgeable. They can go ahead and ask the chef what's included in the meals and things like that. Great question here from Greg. Can I upgrade my roomette even if my trip is only 8 or 9 hours during the day? Absolutely, Greg. If you're on any of these long distance trains which have roomettes available, so the Starlight, the Zephyr, the Southwest Chief, the Empire Builder, absolutely. It doesn't matter the length of your trip. You can easily upgrade to a roomette for any part of your trip. As often actually do recommend it to folks on the Coast Starlight from Los Angeles up to San Francisco. It is all daytime travel. You're not going overnight on that ride, but it is most of the day. You get on in the morning and get off in the evening. So I often recommend to folks to upgrade to the roomette. Then you've got that comfort and privacy, and you also get your meals included. So certainly something to consider. Next question here. Are sales of the roomettes being limited due to COVID? So great question, Judy. At this time, they're not really limiting the sales of the roomettes because everybody's got their own private compartment. So you're really not interacting with the other roomette folks. So it's not quite the same as coach where they need to provide the distance in between everybody. So at this time, yeah, they're not limiting the sale of roomettes. So the roomettes are still available. You don't have to worry about that as much. Because again, you're in your own little private cabin. You can close the door and just kind of kick back and relax and not need to interact with any of the other guests there. Great question here from Sheila. Are the meals included? So great question, Sheila. So the meals on board the trains are included. Where if you do take the roomettes or bedrooms or one of the other private rooms, when you're stopping in the different cities, it just depends on where you stop and what your itinerary is. Sometimes we include some meals, like for the Grand Canyon, we usually include breakfast before you get on that Grand Canyon Railway train. In Glacier Park, we often will include one of the dinner one night at the lodge, just because the lodge is so spectacular. We want you to enjoy dinner on us. So usually we'll have one dinner included at the Glacier Park package. It just depends on which package as far as if the meals are included in the different cities. Certainly if you'd like to add meals, we can often do that. Again, often San Francisco will include a meal for you down at Fisherman's Wharf. So it really just depends. Great question here from Andrew. Uh, does Amtrak have winter trips? Yeah, absolutely. So all of the trips that we looked at, except for Glacier Park, do operate year round. So you can do any of these train routes year round. You could take the Empire Builder in the wintertime if you want. You just can't really get off in Glacier Park, but you could get off in Whitefish, Montana, which is the next stop over. They've got beautiful lodge. You can do skiing and different things like that. For certain destinations, they do have special winter activities. Like we didn't talk about Yellowstone National Park today, but Yellowstone National Park has some great wintertime activities on snow coach, big snowmobile kind of machines. So certainly we do have a lot of different winter trips. So yeah, certainly give us a call or call your local travel advisor and we can let you know, just depending on where you want to go, what you can do for the winter. Great question here from Scott. Is it possible to spend 3 days at the national parks? Absolutely, Scott. So, for example, that Grand Canyon trip only had 2 nights, but you can easily add a third night in the Grand Canyon. Or if you like, you can stay, as I said, in Yosemite for a couple days before returning back to San Francisco pretty easily as well. Next question here from Donna. So neither one of us can climb to an upper bunk, but we do require a private bathroom. Are there choices for us? So Donna, you do have a couple choices. If you do want that room with the private bathroom, the bedroom, you could take one bedroom potentially and one roomette. They'd be just down the hall from each other, so they wouldn't be across the hall. They'd be down the hall from each other. You could spend all day together during the day in your bedroom with the private bathroom, and then one person would retire down to their roomette. Or you could take two bedrooms and we could take the wall out in between them. Might be a little bit more space than you need during the day, but you'd definitely have both that bottom bunk at night, and then actually each person would get their own little private restroom, which is kind of neat. So there are a couple different things we could do. Just let us know what you're thinking, and we can get you some prices on that. Great question here from Sue. So for the prices shown on the trips, what accommodations does that include? So great question, Sue. So most of the trips when I said, it's 14.99 per person or it's 22.49 per person, that was based on the coach accommodations, the regular coach seats on board the train, just because those roomettes and bedroom prices do fluctuate so much. But just to give you an idea, on that last trip we looked at, well, second to last, Glacier Park in Seattle, the roomettes were about $100 per person for the upgrade, and that was to upgrade for both nights, and that included 6 meals, 3 on the way out and 3 on the way back. So quite affordable. They're 100 per person for the roomettes, or it was about, I think it was about 3 or 325 for the bedrooms. I think it was 325 for the bedrooms per person, and again, that was both nights accommodations, 6 meals on 3 on the way out, 3 on the way back. And again, those bedrooms are about twice the size of the roomettes, and they do have those private facilities. So the prices will vary on the roomettes and bedrooms depending on how many nights you're on board the train and when you book and different things like that. But just let us know. And just time for one more question here, folks, because I know we've gone over just a bit. Thank you for sticking with me. Last question that I have time for here is from Tim, and Tim would like to know, do most long distance trains have Wi-Fi? So great question, Tim. Actually, the long distance trains, for the most part, do not have Wi-Fi, just because it can be quite, you're going through pretty remote areas in the mountains and the deserts and things like that. The Coast Starlight does typically have Wi-Fi, but I would never really count on the Wi-Fi. So for example, before I leave, I usually download a couple movies on my tablet or your laptop, right? I download them in advance so that I can watch them during the journey. Certainly make sure to bring the chargers for your phone and things like that. But yes, the Wi-Fi will be intermittent. So just keep that in mind throughout your journey there. And folks, if I did not have time to answer your question, do not worry, because I'll make sure that somebody from the team does reach out to you and get you those answers that you need. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you so much.